There are differences of opinion, different strongly held beliefs about how people with drinking problems can overcome alcoholism. Some people insist that they can just use their own willpower and faith to stop drinking on their own. That was former President George W. Bush's explanation of how he gave up alcohol after drinking heavily until his 40th birthday. Some people insist that you can't do it on your own. You need both a program to follow, like, for example, a 12-step program, as well as sponsors, a support network, peers to help you out when your willpower fades. Sometimes alcoholics find themselves subject to interventions by their friends and their loved ones. Even though you don't think you have a problem, you do have a problem. We're confronting you about that because we love you and you need to change. The recurring metaphor in Lawrence Lessig's new book about how U.S. politics got corrupted, the recurring alcoholic metaphor in his book is Boris Yeltsin, president of Russia. Boris Yeltsin, president of Russia, hammered all the time, just a hopeless drunk. Yeltsin's drunkenness is, in fact, a key part of what happened and why in 1990s Russia and what we understand about it. Por ejemplo.
For the first time in the nuclear age, the Russians actually opened up the nuclear football. They went to President Yeltsin, they opened up the command and control launch codes, the button, put it on the desk, and said, "We're under attack." Fortunately, Yeltsin wasn't drunk, and he didn't believe what the military was telling him. He said there must be some mistake.
In Lawrence Lessig's Republic Lost, he uses the idea of drunk Yeltsin, the metaphor of drunk Yeltsin, to convey the seriousness of what's happened to our politicians, to our Congress, to our political system. Money in our politics is so absolutely unconstrained now. It has so occluded every other thing that public servants are supposed to do that our political institutions are essentially powerless before the fundraising system, the campaign donation system, the money. Like a well-meaning, lovable drunk who nevertheless is a drunk. Congress does not have a way to cure itself at this point. How could a Congress that's totally run by and ruled by big corrupting campaign money ever take action against big corrupting campaign money? The current Speaker of the House once handed out tobacco company checks on the House floor during a vote. You're going to wait for him to move to get big money out of politics? No, of course you're not. Boris Yeltsin is not going to help himself stop drinking. The metaphorical drunk Boris Yeltsin that is our money-soaked Congress needs an intervention. They cannot solve the problem that they are. But we can. There is a way. It's hard, but it could work. Joining us now for the interview, once again, is Harvard Law professor Lawrence Lessig, whose new book, Republic Lost, How Money Corrupts Congress and a Plan to Stop It, is just out. It is that plan to stop it that I cannot stop thinking about, and that has prompted me to ask you to come back so soon. Thank you for agreeing.
Great to be here again.
The institution we're supposed to use to fix stuff, our democracy, the representative government that we have, is the thing that is broken.
Right.
If Congress can't ever be expected to fix itself, what is the option you think that we have to fix Congress for them?
Well, the framers of our Constitution envisioned a time when Congress itself would be the problem. So the ordinary way in which they imagined amendments to our Constitution being proposed was that Congress would propose it, and then the states would ratify it. But if Congress is the problem, they're not going to propose the amendments to change it. So they gave a way for states to call for a constitutional convention. And all the convention does then is propose amendments, which then have to be ratified in the same way that any other amendment has to be ratified. So 34 states have to call for a convention. Congress calls the convention deliberates, and then the convention sends the amendments to Congress. Congress sends them to the states. And if 38 states ratify those amendments, they become part of the Constitution. So that means 13 states, and there are easily 13 red and 13 blue states in our country, could block any amendment, so we don't have to worry about one side or the other running away with the game. But there's a way then to get Congress to focus on the kinds of issues that Congress itself won't focus on. It's an intervention.
What do you think would work as a constitutional amendment to make a real change, to make enough of a change in money in politics that the problem wouldn't just come back?
Yeah, I think an amendment has to have three parts. Number one, we've got to have publicly funded federal elections. And there are lots of ways to talk about it, and I talk about it in the book. I think small dollar funded elections where the money essentially is the people's money. So when Congress is focused on the funders happen to be the people, so there's no gap between the two, and that focuses them in the right way. That's number one. Number two, I think that contributions have to be capped at take Buddy Romer's number, $100, or the equivalent, so that no contribution greater than the $100 is allowed. But I think contributions should be encouraged. So this is where I part ways with Dylan Ratigan a bit. I think people ought to be encouraged to give money to politics, but not so much as to color or pollute the system. And number three, Congress has got to have the power to limit independent expenditures like the ones that you were describing in the Koch brothers, at least around the election. Limit but not ban. I don't think Congress should ever have the ability to say this group is not allowed to electioneer or talk about candidates. But we have to have a system where the system is not so dominated by these independent expenditures that members of Congress are just dancing to attract the right kind of independent expenditures. Those three changes would produce a system where Congress following the funders would be Congress following the people, and we would not have a system where most people believe that 75% of people believe money buys results in Congress.
I have felt hopeless about the prospect of change because of the Supreme Court. Of course, the way you get around the Supreme Court deciding something in constitutional terms is by changing the Constitution. I had been thinking about the only means to changing the Constitution as being one that could start in Congress, and as you say, since Congress was the problem, it didn't seem like that was going to happen. The thing that makes me feel like this is too steep a hill to climb is that so many states have to do it. So many people have to be involved in calling for this. Why are you even mildly hopeful that this could happen?
Well, I think it's a good thing so many states have to do it. I think it's a good thing it should take a long time to do it. I think we, the people, need to have a chance to talk about these issues seriously. Now, the politics of calling a convention are actually a little simpler than it makes it sound, because the reasons that states call for a convention don't have to be the same. So there are many people. We had a conference that was co-sponsored by the Tea Party at Harvard about 3 weeks ago to talk about this issue. And there are many people on the right who are trying to get a constitutional amendment around the budget deficit, and they want a convention to help propose that. And there are people who want a balanced budget amendment. There are people who want all sorts of changes to our Constitution.
Some of them cockamamie.
Some of them cockamamie, some of them maybe not. But the point is, they could rally together to get the convention, and then we have an opportunity in the convention over a long period of time, I think, to seriously address what kind of changes the country needs. And I think that in that process, which should take a long time, we could move the debate forward in a way that's not choreographed by people whose job it is to make polarization the business model of politics. So I think there's a chance to get to the convention. I think the convention itself could produce sensible proposals, and I think those sensible proposals, only the sensible proposals would have a chance to pass. Now, the critical thing about this, though, is that we imagine a process where we take control of the process.
Yeah.
And that's the critical difference between everything that people are talking about in Washington and this.
Well, it's the one place where the snake eating its tail of American politics is starting to become totally apartisan, not nonpartisan, but apartisan, with people resorting to direct democracy in all sorts of ways. We're going to be talking about Occupy Wall Street, what's going on there tonight in just a moment. Lawrence Lessig, author of Republic Lost, How Money Corrupts Congress and a Plan to Stop It, Harvard Law professor. It is a credit to your book and you that I just had you here a couple days ago and had you back because I didn't want to stop talking to you. So thank you for coming back.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.